Dober večer. Dober večer, cenjena publika, dober večer, ministrica za kulturo Asta Vrečko, dober večer, dobitniki štipendij Igorja Zabela, dober večer, letošnja laureatka in mnogi cenjeni gostje iz Slovenije in od drugod. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Mrs. Asta Vrečko, Minister of Culture of Republic of Slovenia, the Igor Zabel Grant recipients, and this year's laureate, Mrs. Bojana Pejić. Dear guests from Slovenia and abroad, welcome to the 8th edition of the Igor Zabel Award for Culture and Theory. This is one of the most prestigious awards in visual arts and culture related to the Central, Eastern and Southeastern Europe. The candidates for the award are curators, art historians, theorists, art writers and critics who are associated with this region. The prize, named in honor of the distinguished Slovenian curator and art historian Igor Zabel, has been awarded biennially since 2008 by the Erste Foundation from Vienna and the Igor Zabel Association from Ljubljana. We open this evening with words of welcome from Mateja Kos-Zabel, President of the Igor Zabel Association, and Blaž Peršin, Director of the Museum and Galleries of Ljubljana.
Hvala, Ksenija. Dobrodošli. Welcome to Ljubljana, to Cukrarna, to the premises which have been opened just 1 year ago, a good year ago. And it is a center for contemporary art, as you see, with its many appearances for visual art, for sound art, for festivals, for contemporary art contents, which have been needed to put in such a form. I'm really glad that we host this year Igor Zabel Award, and thanks to Mateja, to Urška, to all the people, Erste Foundations, and all who have helped this event will took place in Ljubljana. And especially big welcome to all award winners, the women. The power of women is strong, and mostly I would like to thank to Bojana Pejić and to everybody who have helped that this award is in good hands. Thank you very much for this, and I am sure that we will all have a beautiful evening. Ciao.
Spoštovani visoki gostje, spoštovane gospe in gospodje, dragi prijatelji, pozdravljam vas v imenu Društva Igor Zabel za kulturo in teorijo. Najprej bi rada čestitala letošnjim nagrajencem, ki se bodo zelo kmalu pridružili rastoči mreži kustosov in teoretikov povezanih z nagrado. Tudi jaz bi se rada zahvalila Urški Jurman, ki je duša in srce našega društva, in njenemu čudovitemu timu, Blažu za prostore in vse ostalo, in pa seveda Erste skladu, ki nas podpira že od vsega začetka. Hvala pa tudi vsem vam, ki ste nocoj tukaj z nami. Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I would like to greet you on behalf of Igor Zabel Association for Culture and Theory. I would like to congratulate all this year's awardees, and of course I would like to thank Urška Jurman, her team, Blaž Peršin, and the team of Cukrarna Gallery, and of course Erste Foundation, and all of you that you are here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you both for your kind words. Now I welcome to the stage the Minister of Culture of the Republic of Slovenia, Asta Vrečko.
Spoštovana načelnica za kulturo mestne občine Ljubljana, spoštovani podporniki in organizatorji nagrade, spoštovani gostje in seveda spoštovane in drage nagrajenke. Vsi lepo pozdravljeni na letošnjih nagradah. Res mi je v izjemno čast, da vas lahko nagovorim na že kar 8. podelitvi nagrade Igor Zabel za kulturo in teorijo, ki jo Erste sklad skupaj z društvom Igor Zabel za kulturo in teorijo bienalno podeljuje že od leta 2008. Nagrada se podeljuje za izjemne dosežke na področju vizualne umetnosti in kulturne srednje in vzhodne in jugovzhodne Evrope. V regiji pravzaprav ni prav veliko nagrad tovrstnih, ni prav veliko štipendij za teoretike, umetnostne zgodovinarje, pisce in kuratorje. Zato vsaka tovrstna podpora pomeni pomembno prepoznanje pomena strokovnega dela, nagrajenk in nagrajencev, pa tudi pomoč v negotovih razmerah. Umetnost in kultura imata pomembno družbeno vlogo, saj kritično reflektirata družbo in jo delata vidno, tudi kadar se neposredno to ne vidi. Da nevidno postane vidno, potrebuje stabilno finančno in infrastrukturno podporo tako javnega kot tudi zasebnega sektorja. Prav zato so prizadevanja Erste sklada, ki spodbuja kritično misel in pomaga pri oblikovanju umetnostnega diskurza, še toliko bolj pomembna v teh negotovih časih, ko se marsikatera podpore zmanjšuje ali celo ukinja. Podelitev nagrade, ki jo pospremi mednarodna konferenca, ki je trajala sedaj 2 dneva v Ljubljani, že od leta 2006 poteka v Ljubljani. In ob teh priložnostih Ljubljano obišče številno občinstvo in pa tudi ugledni strokovnjaki in strokovnjakinje iz tujine, ki brez vabila društva Igor Zabel za kulturo in teorijo v Ljubljani morda ne bi prišli, občinstvo, študenti, ljubitelji umetnosti, strokovnjaki, strokovnjakinje pa morda ne bi morali v živo slišati izjemnih predavanj in sodelovati v plodnih diskusijah. Še posebej pa me veseli, da je nagrada pomaga ohranjati spomin na delo Igorja Zabela, kustosa in umetnostnega zgodovinarja, ki je svojim delom vplival na generacije umetnostnih zgodovinark in zgodovinark, ki se ukvarjamo z umetnostjo 20. in tudi 21. stoletja. Igor Zabel je v iskanju prepletanja umetnosti in družbe te manj raziskanih umetnostnih praks in pojavov v našem prostoru pustil resnično neizbrisen pečat. To velja tudi za pretekle in aktualne prejemnike in prejemnice štipendij in nagrade Igorja Zabela. Te do sedaj je prejela že vrsta izjemnih kuratork, kuratorjev in teoretičark, ki svojim delom naslavljajo pomembna družbena vprašanja. Letošnja nagrajenka in prejemnice štipendij pomembno prispevajo k zgodovinjanju povojne umetnosti vzhodne Evrope in razumevanju postsocialističnih in postsovjetskih združb, te znotraj njih še zlasti položaja žensk. Preizprašujejo terminološka vprašanja, analizirajo in prevajajo sodobne umetnostne tokove, preučujejo srednje in vzhodnoevropske pojave in tako kot Igor Zabel poskušajo preseči ozke definicije in delitve. Tako izrekam iskrene čestitke nagrajenki Bojani Pejić in prejemnicam štipendij Oksani Briukhovetski, Alini Șerban in Antonini Stebur. Verjamem, da vam bo prepoznanje dragocenega dela dalo še dodaten zagon in verjamem, da boste še v prihodnosti lahko storile mnogo pomembnih korakov, na katere bomo vsi ponosni in se lahko iz njih učili. Čestitke vsem in hvala za to izjemno prireditev.
Thank you, Mrs. Vrečko. Allow me to give you some details now on the Igor Zabel Award. The 3-member international jury selects the laureate and 3 grant recipients based on proposals by 10 nominators. The jury and nominators are appointed by the Erste Foundation and the Igor Zabel Association. The award may be granted to individuals, duos, groups, collectives, and organizations. The laureate receives €40,000 award, while the 3 working grants are endowed with €12,000 each. This award is not tied to any concrete project outcome or any kind of reporting. So far, the Igor Zabel Award has been given to a variety of prominent names in visual arts. The first award was granted in 2008 to the Croatian curatorial collective What, How and For Whom, followed by Polish art historian Piotr Piotrowski, Zuzanna Milewska, curator and art writer based in Skopje, Russian curator and art writer Yekaterina Degot, her compatriot, curator and art writer Viktor Misiano, curator and director of the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw, Joanna Mitkowska, and in 2020, the award was received by the curator and the then director of Ljubljana's Moderna Galleria, Zdenka Bedovinac. Let's see who are the nominators for this year's award. Lucezar Boyadiev, artist from Sofia. Olga Chernisheva, artist from Moscow. Aneta Monakisha, artist from Prague. Iliana Fokianaki, curator and art writer from Athens. Dora Hege, curator, critic, and director of Transit.hu in Budapest. Inga Latze, curator and art writer from Riga. Lena Prenz, art historian and curator from Berlin. Kate Sutton, curator and art writer based in Zagreb. Ovidiu Tichindelanu, cultural theorist and editor based in Kishinev, Cluj, and Copenhagen. Clara Kemp-Welch, art historian from London. These were the nominators. And who are the members of the jury? Marta Dziewanska, philosopher and curator at Kunstmuseum in Bern. Ahmet Öğüt, artist based in Berlin and Amsterdam. Tomasz Pospisil, art historian and curator based in Prague. In a moment, we shall learn more about this year's grant recipients. I would like to ask Ahmet Öğüt to join me on the stage. Marta Dziewanska unfortunately fell ill and is unable to join us here in Ljubljana. Ahmet, could you please give me some insights on the work of the jury, like many sleepless nights, unnerving moments? How did it go?
Do you really want to know?
Yes,
Okay.
we all want to know.
It took us 40 days, 40 nights. We didn't sleep. We were walking when we were deciding. No, this is... it took us one day. One meeting. We thought it was going to get longer, but actually we had a long list. There was a lot of overlappings. That was quite pleasant. We were thinking of, it was really strong long list anyway, and to make a list from that and decide who will win, it was not that easy. But still we had overlappings, and that was very special. And one of the winners actually was nominated 5 times by the nominators, and that was also a special surprise.
Okay, so tell us about the jury's decision.
Everybody knows it, right? You saw it on social media, so it's not a surprise. I will pretend it's a surprise. So the winner is... the jury awards, the first one goes 2022 Igor Zabel Award grant goes to Oksana Briukhovetska. Sorry about this pronunciation, by the way. We will get the right one in a minute. For her outstanding contribution to the artistic and activist life in Ukraine and beyond. Informed by curatorial, artistic and activist methods, her work brings polyphonic voices together, triggers processes of democratization under the most demanding circumstances, and raises feminist awareness. Her strong activist attitude informs her curatorial practice. The exhibitions she has curated or co-curated have a strong, engaged character. In her work, she explores social and gender traumas, the position of women in post-Soviet societies, the experiences of marginalized groups in Ukraine, poverty and Ukrainian labor migration, and the impact of the ongoing military conflict. As most of Oksana's projects have emerged from collaboration, and she's currently far from the Ukrainian scene, the jury hopes that the grant will give her the opportunity to initiate projects with Ukrainian feminists, artists, curators, and activists, while continuing to cultivate international collaborations. It's especially important to support the fragile feminist discourse that is both endangered and at the same time crucial in the context of the war in Ukraine. Oksana, congratulations. Please join us on stage. Oksana always also have a wish, and maybe you want to share a wish.
Dear all, since the war in my country is still ongoing and people are dying every day, I would like to ask you to stand and to spend a minute in silence in commemorating the innocent victims of this war, civilians, children, women, and also those who gave their lives defending my country. Thank you. Thank you. Слава Україні!
Please.
Thank you, Oksana. So, the other awards, the jury awards, the 2022 Igor Zabel Award grant goes to Alina Șerban in recognition of her exceptional ability to create self-managed organizations and platforms that brings together Central and Eastern European researchers and cultural workers. She has accumulated valuable experience funding or co-funding self-managed organizations over many years. Most important recent among them is IP, the Institute of the Present, a research and artist resource platform in the field of the visual and performing culture in Romania. Alina's outstanding research and curatorial practice entail a unique combination of both independent and institutional perspectives and addresses issues of horizontality in post-war Eastern European art and architecture, as well as the terminological uses in art historical narratives. Her work helps develop new transnational and transcultural perspectives and terminologies for issues that have previously been underdeveloped or marginalized. With this grant, the jury aims to provide additional support for Alina Șerban to continue her research, as well as to continue the continuity of the IP, the Institute of the Present. Alina, congratulations. Please join us on stage. The jury awards the 2022 Igor Zabel Award grant to Antonina Stebur in recognition of her extraordinary power of resistance, her commitment to decolonize Belarusian art, and her contagious belief that the art is the practical instrument for political imagination. Antonina's work not only reflects her research interest in post-Soviet studies and the mechanism of state violence, politically engaged art and feminist art, but is also an engaged way of exploring the notion of solidarity and the weak resistant tactics. She works individually, but also in many groups and collectives. This includes research groups dealing with activist art and political performance, gender discrimination in Belarus, and recently initiatives that resist war, dictatorship, and patriarchal power by means of art. The horizontality of her approach and her solidarity-based way of working are noteworthy. The jury is confident that this grant not only recognizes Antonina's past initiatives, but it will enable her to continue her research and encourage her insightful writing, curatorial work, and activism in the resistance movement. Antonina, congratulations, and please join us on stage.
Congratulations to you all, and this is also a great chance to find out some more about your work. Oksana Briukhovetska It is, of course, hard to avoid the topic that is looming upon us all, especially the people in Ukraine. Regarding the war, there are, of course, so many pressing issues that we could debate, but maybe at this moment we could actually open a question of what art can offer in such horrific circumstances.
First of all, thank you so much, Igor Zabel Associations and the jury for selecting me for this award. And I'm happy to share a few insights with you on this topic. But I would like to start with my very many years ago, but very key project that they made, the exhibition called Ukrainian Body, and which was in 2012, and it was a big impact of Ukrainian artists on the reflection on social conditions, on political circumstances in which Ukrainians live and how it affects their bodies. So this exhibition drew a lot of attention. It was censored, and a lot of attention and also solidarity, and including internationally. But why I'm mentioning this now? Because I was asked by Igor Zabel Association to send some images from my curatorial practice. And I realized that I don't have the English version of poster of Ukrainian Body exhibitions in my laptop, so I decided to Google it and find the image online. And when I put these two words, Ukrainian Body, the images that appeared behind my eyes, it's all images of war, devastation, injured and dead bodies. So, and this was very symbolic, because this is where we are. And this situation kind of separate us from previous life, from previous projects, previous topics. And so this also about art, that artists, they also feel obligation to work with this, even they maybe didn't choose this, like, you know, in your life you have many interests, but as I asked Valentina Petrova, one of the Ukrainian feminist artists that I worked with, and now I'm writing a paper about her in University of Michigan. I had a call with her and I asked, what are you doing? She's in Europe. She said, I work in a new project. What this project is about? Of course, we all work in one topic now. And for me, like, the question what art can do is very important, crucial, and painful, because sometimes in the moments of despair, of feeling of grief and anger about what is going on in Ukraine, I feel sometimes that I cannot stop the war with my art, and we cannot do this with art, but still art needed to reflect these events, which are, I don't know, what Ukraine needs, of course, is a weapon and help in this direction to win, and we believe, we Ukrainians believe that we will win. And then also to rebuild country, to bring new life to this society, I think art will play a very important role in this, and also in healing the trauma which we are all going through. Thank you.
Thank you, Oksana. Antonina, you were closely involved in uprising that happened in Belarus in 2020, and also in theoretical thinking about art regarding the uprising. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Somehow the full-scale invasion in Ukraine and Russia in Ukraine and uprising in Belarus is connected to each other, unfortunately. But yeah, I completely agree with Oksana that, of course, nobody can stop, not nobody, but art, of course, cannot stop this war, but we can do something about it, like many drops of water can do much more than one drop. And as for uprising, I think that art also in Belarus, and not only art is itself, but many cultural workers also played a significant role during the protest and revolution in Belarus. First of all, because everybody were involved in this, but at the same time, it was amazing how art stopped become only like elite sphere that belongs only professional artists, and how many just people who sometimes hadn't any experience to visiting contemporary art museums, use just language of art and tool of art for resistance and for creation their solidarity. So that's why I believe that artists also can and should reflect about the situation and do something and be a mediator for different types of solidarity on the one hand, but as well as art itself has a lot of tools and languages that we can use for that.
Thank you. Alina, Alina Șerban, I'm sorry, your research addresses the question of horizontality in post-war Eastern European art and architecture. Now, why is that so important?
So thank you very much, and I'm really would like to thank to the Igor Zabel and to the jury and the nominators. I was thinking a lot about also following my colleagues' kind of very strong and very hard topic. So what is our place? So it's also in my work, I'm, let's say, in between fields. So I'm an academic, but I'm not. I'm a curator, but I'm not. But I'm a researcher, first of all, and I put in, as a main focus of my work is artists and their own kind of stories, narratives, concepts, and the theme that make them going through. So, and like, as a kind of conclusion and asking myself what I am doing and what is my role, and I think what I kind of consider myself as a listener. So what I'm doing and what I'm doing in my work is to listen, and I think it has to do a part with my context where I come from in the north part of the country, with this idea of storytelling comes again with this idea of listening, and it's also about recalling, it's also about remembering, and also about reviving narration. So, but in my practice, and regarding to your question, I'm focusing mostly on this kind of non-linearity or in the narratives in art history. So I'm interested in this kind of disruptions that appear, in this kind of unbalanced encounters, in this accidental gatherings. So because this kind of ruptures that appears in the art history parcours give us in a way the door to make comparison and to kind of view in horizontal ways different approaches. And I think, and this is why I'm keen so much in this unmediated relationship with the artist, because I work very closely to it. So, and it's part of my work. It's also a dedication to their work, and also what I do and what I did. It's also it's what they gave me in exchange. So because I listen, so this kind of being as a listener, I can also kind of redraw in my own way specific topics, specific themes, which I think would be considered relevant for rewriting of history in the region, or in my own context, Romania.
Mm-hmm. As I was saying in the beginning, we would really like to know more about you and your work. So maybe a good question now would be, what are the current projects that you're working on, or you have just finished? I know, Oksana, you have just finished a book, is it? What is it about?
So I'm, from the beginning of 2020, I'm staying in the United States, and I came there with my family just before pandemic. And also we witnessed Black Lives Matter protests, which were the protests for racial justice against racism in America, which is a long history. So we learned a lot about history of United States, a lot of things that we didn't know before. And observing the media coverage of these events in Ukraine and in East Europe in generally, we saw that it was pretty poor, so that the people need more information and also a lot of bias actually, and a lot of racism were visible in social media as well. So the idea of the book came when we interviewed some people and published, I translated text into Ukrainian, and some texts were published in media, and then I worked on a book collecting interviews. So there's a book with more like 20 stories of personal stories of different Americans. We conducted with my husband Zahar Popovich these interviews via Zoom because it was pandemic and this new tool came, so it was very interesting and gave a possibility to connect with people in different cities. And the book was mostly readied for publication in with publishing house Choven from Lviv. We were about to publish it in spring 2020, but because of the war, it was not finished yet and not published yet, but I hope it will be published in coming soon. So the most important goal to finish the war.
Of course.
And so then I also was admitted to the art program in the University of Michigan when I'm currently I'm an MFA student, and I'm working now on my art project, my own art project for graduation, which is a big piece installation made in textile, collage, and with sound, referring my emotions about war in Ukraine and also Ukrainian history, identity, connecting with the memory of my grandparents who went also through the Second World War. And so we have, like Ukrainians, we have this experience in every generation, in every family. So I'm trying to work like more symbolically on this, and I was very inspired by, I actually was interested in textile and feminism, and one of my previous projects was an exhibition about textile and as a feminist techniques, textile and embroidery. So I developed this now in my own project, and also I was inspired while traveling to Chile and learning about arpilleras, these Chilean political textiles that was during Pinochet dictatorship, like established as a great political message done by women with this medium.
You were telling me earlier a great story about your shirt. Maybe you could share it with us?
Okay. So when we were in United States and the war started, my daughter, who is with me there, she asked me, why don't we have vyshyvanka with us? Why didn't we bring it with us to United States? I said, oh, we didn't think about this. Really, it was not so important before the war. But now we decided to order this embroidered blouse called vyshyvanka, and we ordered from some Ukrainian enterprises from Kyiv. They sent it to us. So this is modernized version. It's not like very authentic, but yeah, I think it's many things about Ukrainian symbols and identities became now very important. Even I can talk a lot about this, but shortly, for example, Ukrainian flag, how meaning of it changed. It's not only a symbol of the government and state, but it's really like in people's heart. They go everywhere, and in the United States also, I observed many demonstrations and participated and organized street actions in Ann Arbor, where I am, and also was in Detroit. There were huge thousands of people on the streets with Ukrainian flags. It was very cool.
Mm-hmm. Antonina, what about your current activities? I believe you must be still involved with all kind of resistant movements, theoretical thinking about it.
Well, as a majority of my colleagues, we somehow involved in helping of Ukraine to stop this war, and together with my Belarusian colleagues and later with our Ukrainian colleagues, we organized an international collection of cultural workers against the war in Ukraine that collected, distribute, and organize different events to reflect how we can think and how we can talk about events and all this terrifying situation. And this coalition involved the artists all over the world from from Turkey, India, Mexico, Ukraine, of course, Belarus, and many, many other countries. And for us, it's very important because we think about this coalition as a network of solidarity. and not focus directly only on Russia-Ukrainian war, but also try to collect, to exchange, and to think about different practice of resistance all over the world that created in many other countries, in Latin America, inside the Kurdish movement, for example, in Belarus, in Ukraine, this infrastructure of support, or in the practice of struggling, and to share it and to exchange it. It's also important to keep this solidarity beyond the existence line of exchanging movement, to think about this war as a very complex phenomenon that involved the idea of imperialistic discourse, but as well as decolonization movement, and as well as somehow very complex economical and political context. On the one hand, and the second project that I had as my long-term research that connected with infrastructural art, I focus on different activistic practice in art that somehow created infrastructure, supported infrastructure of care and infrastructure of support. So it's also the project that's very difficult to recognize as art itself and very difficult to exhibit it. And all the time many people ask, but is it art or not? But this is a very uncertain border between art and activist. Is very interesting for me, and of course my interest about it was later than Belarusian protest began, but during the Belarusian protest, when I saw how many different infrastructure of solidarity and infrastructure of care were organized, of course I started to focus on this phenomena more, and now I have different interview, not only from our context, but all over the world, because sometimes art is the last, not the last tool, but somehow, yes, who tried us to focus on and to pay attention on particular problem and to create a structure of care.
It's so inspiring to have these great people, great women here in Ljubljana. Alina Șerban, your Institute of the Present, is this still something that you keep in your mind all the time, or what is your current work that you do?
Actually, the current project is in the framework and it's generated as part of the Institute of the Present, and it's connected with the turn of the 89, so it's called Performing 89, and it deals with this change at the beginning of the 90s. And will be in a city which has an important historical importance for Romania, Timișoara, which is the revolution city. And it is a comparative project which tries to discuss Romania, Hungary and Serbia because of the closeness, and so it's kind of a regional research, and discuss the issues of the art, but from the perspective of the artistic engagement with the public sphere. So this is the main topic of the project.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I really hope we get to see some of your work here in Ljubljana as well. Maybe for the last round, just a few words about, now I was asking questions and so, but maybe you would like yourself to tell us something interesting that you did in the past, some project that journalists don't ask you about, but you think it's relevant and important. It would be really nice if you could share, this with us. Let's start with Oksana again.
Thank you for this question. It's difficult to choose. I can tell so many things, but maybe I would mention my feminist exhibitions, which were for me very important, and I think that the award that I received was the important point of it was for this my projects, which I made in Ukraine in Visual Culture Research Center and involving women artists. So there was a lot of questions, why only women? Isn't it a discrimination of male artists and so on? So it was good to open this discussion, and in Ukrainian context it was, I think at the time it was 2015 and then 2017, very important dialogue between different groups of activists, artists, researchers, and also I involved artists from Eastern Europe and even some from West Europe. And then with Lesia Kulczynska, my collaborator for many years, we conducted a research of interviews and we published a book. It was interviews with artists, curators, even philosophers. So we were in Paris. It was research done in Paris, but also we had interviews from Poland, also from Czech Republic, from Ukraine, from Belarus, and even French philosopher Geneviève Fraisse, she contributed and she gave us a lot of insight. So this, because I was telling about books on a book about Black Lives Matter, so this will be my second book as an editor, but the first one with Lesia, we conducted this book called The Right to Truth, Conversations on Art and Feminism, and the book is available online, so, and I think it's present very interesting perspective also, and a bunch of knowledge on activism and art in East Europe and in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. What about yourself, Alina?
So my closest project to my heart is the editorial program that I founded. It's called P+4 publication, and it's dedicated only to Romanian art and artists. So I started with my first book in 2011, and it continued until today. So this is a program which is dedicated to kind of very specific research on artistic practices in Romania, and I work closely with the artists, defining the topic, and then making a very, like books are like an exhibition. So from my point of view, you will see they are beautiful as a design, but also the narrativity that it's created within them. So, and it's a necessity in my context to keep publish on art.
Super. Antonina?
Probably I would like to mention about one exhibition. This exhibition was held in 2021. I was a part of curatorial group of the exhibition Machine is Breathing and I am Not. This exhibition was created during the protest, during the Belarusian uprising, but was dedicated to political dimension of COVID. And how government, on the one hand, how governmental use COVID as a rhetoric figure or in ideological point of view on the one hand, and on the other hand, how they started to ignore, the government, Belarusian government started to ignore the COVID at all, and it led to and provoked the grassroots activity, because people understand that nobody can protect them except themselves, and they started to organize somehow and protect themselves. And unfortunately, this exhibition existed only 2 days because government closed it, and and after that I shouldn't stay in Ukraine, but for me it was a very important exhibition, because this exhibition reflects somehow the prehistory of Belarusian uprising, because not only the reaction of political repression and violence provoked the Belarusian protest, but first of all, before president's election, their incapability to manage the COVID situation also provoked the solidarity, because Belarusians usually it's a very atomized society, and due to this government couldn't do anything with it. They started to gather together, started to protect themselves, and it's also somehow influence on the protest events. So for me it's very important because unfortunately almost every team of our groups, not only curatorial and managing team, but also the participants, artists, they also should run away of the country, and almost nobody except one artist now is still not in Belarus. So it's also important for us, this exhibition.
Thank you so much to all three of you for sharing your stories, your work with us, and congratulations once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you can do it. Thank you. And it is traditionally the task of Jasna Zabel, daughter of Igor Zabel, to hand over the trophy to the laureate. So please, Jasna, would you do the honor this year as well? Before we meet this year's laureate, let's first talk to the member of the jury again, please. Tomasz Pospišil, please come to the stage, and please let's hear about jury's work. We've heard about grants selection procedure. What about the laureate? Was it clear from the start?
I would say so, because we simply had this very heavy-duty candidate, and there was no way around it.
Okay. Could you give us your arguments for the prize, please?
Yes, I can.
Please.
The jury awards Bojana Pejić for her lifelong research Come on, you knew it, right? The jury awards Bojana Pejić for her lifelong research into the constituent elements of Eastern European art and culture. Her writings, and particularly her complex international exhibitions, such as After the Wall, Art and Culture in Post-Communist Europe, and Gender Check, Femininity and Masculinity in the Art of Eastern Europe, have had worldwide impact, critically marking our understanding of art during state socialism and also providing critical analysis of post-socialist culture after 1989. Bojana Pejić's understanding of Eastern Europe transcends ideological pictures of an oppressed and underdeveloped East. She explores its many cultural histories, treating them not as derivative products of Western exemplars, but as a heterogeneous and specific, and having their own unique importance. Her consistently feminist reading of art from Eastern Europe provides lessons on art, society, and power structures relevant to audiences around the world. Her projects are test grounds, full of cross-references, that show rather than assume, and history is never petrified in them. With her work, Bojana Pejić invites us into a never-ending critical process. She orchestrates transnational teams or works alone as she surveys what Eastern European countries have in common and how their art makes visible the history, nationalism, and gender. She is responsible not only for the international recognition of many artistic voices, but also for creating critical self-reflection knowledge about our shared history. The jury wishes to praise the type of cultural worker Bojana Pejić represents. She is an opinionated thinker who nevertheless succeeds in uniting many different researchers into a core of distinct voices. Working mostly as a freelancer, she has created large and insightful projects. She is an art historian and also an activist for whom academia is never sufficient. Bojana Pejić compels us to reread our past in order to change our common future.
Thank you very much. And I kindly ask Mrs. Bojana Pejić for a few words. Thank you.
This is such an important moment, and I think the best would be to remain speechless, but I can't. Before I thank the jury for these incredible words, you know, you just listen and you ask yourself, is it really me? I want I would like to say thank you to Aneta Mona Kisha, whose idea was to propose me for this prize. And I told her, darling, you are completely crazy. I am just too old for this kind of things. But Aneta insisted, and I'm so proud that an artist recommended me, because I wrote about Aneta and her partner, Lucia Tkachova. I wrote about them. They exhibited in many exhibitions, and if an artist proposes you, that means, I think, that you didn't do so many things wrong. Second, thank you to the jury, Tomasz, Ahmed, and Marta, who is not with us. I'm really grateful for your text, and it will be months. I have next months to study what you really meant. What you, fortunately, what you didn't know about me, and you could have asked artists, is that my texts are too long, my exhibitions are too big and too crowded, and the worst of all, I'm always late with something. I always postpone a little bit the deadline, using another weekend, and so on and so on. So, I still have some more minutes, Urška told me, and I started with something, but I forgot to tell you that I'm really addict to melodramatic movies, Hollywood 50s and so on, so next minute we'll go in this direction. So this award, in fact, is an Oscar for lifetime achievements, but actually it means that the great future is behind me, you know? So, but hopefully there is still something to come. My next deadline is Christmas about Sheila Kamerić. This beautiful sculpture with this beautiful object with letters, okay, little poetic association. For us art historian, critics, also for some artists, these letters are our material, you know? We use this in order to tell you what art may mean. But since this, I mentioned great future is behind me, but I'm a woman with the past. And concerning these letters and theory, I have to recount jetzt, okay, we are among us, I can tell personal story. I can tell an anecdote from my life which really happened. End of the 90s, my mother bought me an apartment in Belgrade, took a credit from the bank, so I had a place of my own, and the big deal in the end of the 70s in Belgrade was to have Stolkamnik white bookshelves, if some remember. It was really big deal, and I had some in my living room where I also worked. There are like three walls with libraries, and there was a moment in the end of the 70s. You know, everybody had a one-night stand, so let's say it was my turn. So I invited them. Okay, don't forget, end of the 70s, AIDS, we still didn't know much about AIDS, and condoms were not so popular among my Serbs. So I invited my regular Serbian macho soft version, and we sit on the sofa and starting a little bit kissing and so on, and suddenly the guy stopped and said, Maco, Schatz, I cannot do it among so many books. Okay, but and then I said, Schatz, listen, I'm art historian, these books are only with pictures. Okay, just one, let's, probably a little bit less melodramatic. When you know, the problem with this prize is that you know about it in May, but you are not allowed to tell anybody for 6 months. So this was, but during this time, I was thinking really what I was doing, how I deserved it in a way, let's again, melodramatic. The only exhibition which is really important for me is one that many few people saw, like Piotr Piotrowski and Edith Adrash from, let's say, the family here. And this was exhibition in Belgrade in 2008 entitled Artist Citizen. And for me it was important to introduce still, you know, we are just living in middle of thousands of nationalism. And for me it was important this notion of citizenship, you know, that there are many identities we have in our life. We never have one identity, but this idea of artist-citizen who is probably an activist, but not necessarily, because artists do art in the way as certainly Ukrainian artists are going to deal with this war and trauma and so on. So, and I became somehow rereading again, I hope you remember a German theorist Peter Bürger, his Theorie der Avantgarde in the 70s, I hope you remember him. And in 96, he wrote one letter to the organizer on Documenta in Kassel, 10th Documenta, and he wrote a letter to the organizing and really criticizing. He was really appalled with neoliberal capitalism, market, globalization, and so on. And he used one phrase which somehow I have stolen for my own purpose. He mentions that he mentions the following formulation about today's world. He speaks about resisting the limits of now. You know, now, yes, has also historical dimensions. So if I think of after the war, how younger artists in the 90s resisting, sharing some hopes about democracy, but resisting nationalism, resisting home violence, resisting consumerism. So this was one aspect of working against the limits or resisting the limit. Then in the gender check, we had a period, socialist period, 24 of us who took part in the gender check. We also have selected artists that resisted this ideology of gender egalitarianism, detecting in this ideology many hopes, and also detecting an issue that was hardly ever touched in socialist art, and this is domestic violence. Good. You know, I'm so glad that the term feminism was mentioned. And when we started Gender Check, I got an issue of Umelec from Prague, art journal from Prague, from 2005, where two younger colleagues made an investigative interview about feminism in general, not necessarily in art. And then one person who took part in the interview, I presume it was an artist, said something fantastic. She said, I use that word, feminism, only intimately and when it is dark. So now we are in 2020. I'm sorry that it is too dark here, but I mean, because feminism for me is about citizenship, it's about democracy, it's about men and women. It is in fact about us. And the last sentence, to quote Bell Hooks, American feminist writer who died, feminism for her and for many of us is important because it is passionate politics. You don't need to be very young or very old, because if you do passionate politics as Sylvia Ebermeyer does it, and in my best 70s, this is a passion that doesn't stop. However, now in my mid-70s, I like to quote my favorite crime novelist, Nesbo. One character says, I wish I were 60 again. Thank you.
I know you gave loads of interviews today, but our audience will really appreciate some answers. You were talking about feminism, and I have read in one of your recent interviews where you were saying that you only became true feminist when the wars in Yugoslavia began.
No, it's also the melodramatic statement, but you know, I never, there are certain types of activism probably I perform, but I never went in the street, you know, to protest against the war. And then my colleagues, particularly my best friend, sociologist Bojana Pejić, who died in 2002, and also Croatian feminists, you know, how they protested against the war in their activities as sociologists, journalists, and so on. So then I realized that nationalism cannot be destroyed, but it can be disturbed in a bit. Because, you know, I read feminist art histories in the 70s, feminist intervention, but somehow, you know, I used to be one of the people who worked in socialist Yugoslavia, in student center, new art practice. And then our fight in the 70s was to prove to modernists, you know, abstract painter professors at art academies, that video and performance and video and performance and conceptual art, our task was to prove that this was art, you know, because my professor of aesthetics, I don't want to mention even his name, he said, art that is not presented in a material, paintings, canvas, and so on, is no art. So, of course, I mean, many women artists were active at that time, but somehow I was always, you know, what Hal Foster called cubocentric, oriented cubocentrism in art, like abstract art. So during our wars, I mean, somehow it's nasty to say, because it's something like against abstract artists, but I couldn't have interest in that art because I needed something that with resistance towards what is happening in ex-Yugoslavia. Okay, it's too long and it's enough.
If we look back at the wars of former Yugoslavia, but this is not a question, can you envisage what a cultural setback this war in Ukraine, this Russian attack on Ukraine will mean for, you know, artists in big part of former European East?
No, it's hard to say. Because it is like pre-seeing future, and I don't dare to think in this direction. Let's hope that war will end, and this idea of hope, you know, this is what when Sheila Kamerić was during her presentation. It was very depressive day yesterday. But when somebody mentioned in this depressive time that war death as a theme in general, and so on, for me, it's a hope. For me, hope is when an artist decides to work with this heavy theme, which are both political, personal, and so on. So for me, this is hope. But what Ukrainian artists will do, I don't know. You know, the only thing that, it's a nasty remark. My colleague from Sarajevo, Nermina Zildjo, art historian, who studied in Paris with Bourdieu, okay, always wanted, no, she was working part-time in Centre Georges Pompidou, and in the 80s proposed them to exhibit Bosnian artists, you know? as soon as the war started, everybody wanted to show Bosnian artists, you know. This is not how market functioned, this is how the museum functioned, because, and she was really pissed off with this. She didn't want to show Bosnian artists during the second war, during the Bosnian war in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Okay, a couple of more questions, please allow me. Talking about feminism, if this event had been going on 50 years ago, it would be almost impossible that 4 women from the area of history of art would receive such beautiful awards. So what does that mean? That in those 50 years, the old frames of patriarchy have actually disappeared?
And what about gender egalitarianism in socialist Yugoslavia? Many directors of the museum in socialist Yugoslavia were women. For instance, Mama of Marina Abramović. She was director of Museum of Revolution. But feminism was, this is what when we did the gender check, I played with this egalitarianism idea, because this feminist conference Drugca žena, Comrades Woman, žensko pitanje, novi pristup, Comrades Women's Question, New Approach, was attacked by official party women organization in Yugoslavia. We don't need feminism, we are here equal, we can abort if we wish, we can study, we can work women can work contractor and so on and so on. But the question that this conference in Belgrade opened, and this is, I think it was Rada's Iveković phrase, playing with the kids in the audience. Do you still remember some phrases from Communist Manifesto? No. Okay.
Workers.
Proletarians of all countries
unite.
Yeah, okay. But the slogan after this conference in Belgrade was proletarians of all countries who washes your socks. So this was somehow the other aspect of egalitarianism, you know. And after the war, we had really beautiful, fantastic painting thematizing this, this so-called private sphere in which women operated washing machines, brought kids to kindergarten, and also totally neglected in the public discourse domestic violence. Because it was, you know, there is soc art, and I usually called our socialist soc patriarchy.
You have recently lectured a few weeks ago, and your lecture had an interesting title, Bojana Pejić, Curatorial Works, or All That Is Solid Melts Into Air. And I read an article about it, and they were saying, well, this is now her main motto, slogan. I was thinking, she's writing such huge books, but actually it's so simple.
But, okay. After I did this October Salon exhibition, Arty Citizens, which was also criticized in Belgrade because it was not too aesthetics, because it dealt with political themes like, I don't know, war or comments on the war trauma and so on and so on. But I never really had a lecture in Belgrade last 20 years, somehow. So finally invited me Centar za kulturnu dekontaminaciju, the normal place in Belgrade, existing as NGO for years. And then this young curator invited me to talk about my curatorial experience, and then I subtitled this lecture with this phrase, everything that is solid melts into air, because this is our curatorial work. We do exhibition, exhibition is closed, the work go to function in other areas, in other exhibition, but what you did or what we did as curator survive only in memory. So this is this solid objects that are melts into air. And then do you know whose sentence I have hijacked, stolen. Karl Marx, this is his definition of modernity. 1857, his speech in London in English, and okay. I think that curators understand what I mean, you know? It is in the air, but also it stays in memory, as gender check stayed in memory of Alina, Mara Traumane, Jurska, Jurman, who were we did together gender check.
I promise now, last question. What are you currently working on?
I can read crime novels without guilty conscience. And now Shayla, darling, I promise I will not be late, okay? And now when we drink wine about my anecdote from my childhood, from my suffering as young art historian, there is an American version of it, but this I will tell you with the wine.
Thank you so much, and congratulations once again. And now we would like to hear from Boris Marte, CEO from the Erste Foundation, and Urška Jurman, Program Director of the Igor Zabel Association. Please.
So I will start, after this fantastic performance of Bojana. We did a great project together, I remember, and the sentence "Proletaria всех стран" in the Russian version, "Proletariat of all countries, who washes your socks," still also is in my memory. And it was, you can imagine the melodramatic moments we had making gender check together, but it opened in time. We opened in time, right? So this was really great. So, hello everybody, dear Minister, dear friends, family, meeting again in Ljubljana, dear Igor Zabel family, Urška. Congratulations for bringing us all together again here to Ljubljana, celebrating the achievements of the arts and commemorating wonderful Igor Zabel. Urška, you do it in such a great way. It's always so nice to come to Ljubljana, and for 4 days, or for these days in the year, Ljubljana really is the hot spot. And it is great that we can do it again. I remember we had 2 years ago, we did it via Zoom. Today we can meet again. So thanks for all the relevant work you do for the Igor Zabel Association and for carrying all this with so much energy and so professional into the future. I also want to thank and mention Matea Kos and the Igor Zabel family. It is really great to see and feel how much you support this initiative and how happy and privileged we feel that we can undertake such an important venture together with you. This is really great. Thank you very much. Yes, Bojana, I really remember this exhibition we did together, Gender Check. At that time, this was, I remember your philosophical force. You heard it. Your wonderful humor and your deep knowledge and your hands-on capabilities. It was a great time, and the more we are so happy today that you are now an honorable member of a unique lineup of amazing personalities as Igor Zabel laureates. This is just great to have you here. Yes. Quoting the Brazilian critic Mario Pedrosa, who so memorably called art the experimental exercise of freedom, still the greatest definition of art I know, The curator and writer Dieter Röllstrate put the mission of the arts in a recent text into the following words. Undeniably, art is a weapon in the revolutionary arsenal that seeks to remake the world, to imagine it anew. Art is for us to make sense of where none may exist, and none probably does or should exist. Art will forever remain humanity's single greatest idea, even if it may already be a thing of the past. In this sense, we know how important this biennial gathering here in Ljubljana has become for all of us. Here we are able to recollect our energies, to foster our relationships, and to celebrate this touch of solidarity we all need to perform. Here we can feel this very special heritage of Igor, whose spirit and humor we miss so much in these shattered days. Here the common joy and the power of this community will provide us with enough confidence and energy to move on fulfilling our purpose. In this sense, in the name also of my organization, of Erste Foundation, I want to thank you all for coming, and I'm already looking forward for the Igor Zabel Award in 24. Enjoy the party.
Thank you, Boris. Thank you, Erste Foundation, for ongoing support. Boris, it was you who personally initiated this award soon after Igor Zabel suddenly passed away. And somehow, as you touched upon a little bit already, it was also an initiative as an act to commemorate and to commemorate the work of Igor Zabel, also Igor Zabel as a personality, but also to keep the legacy of his work vibrant. And if I think on the Igor Zabel Award also from the perspective of yesterday's conference, Bojana said before it was a depressive day because we were actually discussing the future of life on this planet from the perspective of a life's end. And so if I look at the award from this perspective, and knowing Igor Zabel personally also as a very supportive person, I'm quite confident that he would be happy about the fact that the legacy of his work can support the work and lives of his colleagues like Bojana and also younger generations. So congratulations, dear Bojana, Oksana, Alina, and Antonina. I'm very happy that you all four were able to come to Ljubljana, and also with you, many guests from abroad, over 60. We host these 2 days in Ljubljana to celebrate your work together. All this would not be possible without the work of the nominators and the jury, their dedicated work, for which I really thank you. And at the end of the day, nothing of that would be possible without the wonderful and heartful team. I would like to thank to Hannah Zierman, Urška Komino, Urška Plinc, many Urškas, Lara Mejac, Borut Sanko and his crew, also great designers Anja Del Belo and Aljaž Vesel, Mateja Kurir, who was with us the first half of the year, and I would like to give them a big applause. Thank you, and at the end also thanks to the hosting institution, MGML Cukrarna, to BIM team who prepared the video part of this event, and stream team for technical support, and you, dear Ksenija Horvat, for beautiful moderation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Boris. Thank you, Urška. And I thank you, the participants of this event. I would like to invite you all for an after party with music by DJ Borka. But first, I have to ask the winners, the jury members, the Zabel family, Boris Marte and Urška Jurman, to come to the stage for a family photo. Thank you all and have a pleasant evening.
Yeah.